Okay, the question is, do I hate the police? And the answer is no, actually. I'm actually kind of worse off in some ways. I don't trust the police. Um, I don't trust the average police officer. Well, I don't know about that. The average police officer, I think, is probably a halfway decent human being and therefore trustworthy. I've just had some bad experiences, and about 15 years ago, um, I got arrested, and my quote unquote victim perjured herself. And I have until very recently believed that the police and the prosecutor both knew and encouraged her to perjure herself, um, which put me in a position where I basically had to plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit, in part due to a lawyer who was less than stellar, and my lawyer is now in prison um, because of how well he did his job, um, which says something about what I was dealing with. But I did until recently believe, that the police and the prosecutor knew and encouraged the perjury. And I say this because I can prove very easily that the woman perjured herself. My lawyer knew that and he didn't act on it. But I thought at the time, and have until very recently thought, that the police were involved. And that blew my faith in the police, which was coming back to me. Um, for those of you who don't know, and I'll say this, because hopefully it helps someone out there. I was raped by a police officer as a child, um, and that put a very negative image of the police in my head. But I managed to get past it by the time I was in high school. I had a couple of police officers in my Kempo school, and they were all right guys. They seemed pretty decent, actually. Um, and one gave me a PBA card, which I thought was the coolest thing on earth. So, for several years at least, the police and I got along pretty well. Um, and I would move on. I'm not going to give them every story. There's been twice in my life I've helped the police when they were, in a bad situation physically. Um, some would say I committed assault because I put down somebody who was trying to take out a police officer in Philadelphia. Um, and I've tried. I've tried to like the police. I've tried to trust the police, and I'm trying again. My therapist has gotten me to at least accept that I don't know with any certainty whether or not the police were involved in that perjury thing, and they may well not have been. Um, that acted very badly after that, but that's something else. And again, it's just two police officers. It's not every police officer. So no, I don't hate the police. I have never hated the police, and I don't intend to start now. But I don't trust them, and I need to work on that. That's my own issue. Um, you'll find in a lot of my videos that I say to not trust the police, and I feel that I have pretty good reason for that, though I'm working on it. Um, especially in self-defense situations, you know, the absolute best thing to do is ask for a lawyer right off. Because it's a crapshoot. You might get, you know, the perfect police officer, the guy you could trust with your life, or you might get, a drunk or a drug addict or, you know, somebody who really doesn't give a shit. Um, I was a victim of a assault 7-on-2. It's one of the three fights that I've lost in street fighting, and the police were miserable. They were horrible to me. Um, I'm sitting there bleeding out with my jaw broken so far open that they thought I was missing like several teeth. Um, I'm soaked in blood, and the police are just like, "Hey, you motherfucker," you know? And I'm like, "Whoa, dude, what the fuck is this shit?" You know? Because at that time I still liked, I liked the police, and as I said, I had a couple of cops in my Kempo school. Um, I mean, it worked itself out, but not well. I got taken to the hospital, and thankfully not under arrest for being a victim. Um, it's hairy out there, you know. To be fair, and and this is hard for me, but to be fair, you know, they did not know that I was the victim right off. They, I'm sure they may have had some belief that I was a hostile actor in that little show. Um, and their attitude changed towards me as they talked to people who didn't know me and my friends. Uh, but it was it was something. That was my first real interaction with the police in a street fight situation. Especially from the vantage point of being a victim. And I got to tell you, it was ugly. Um, that stayed with me my whole life. It was such a negative interaction that it has stayed with me to this day. I've tried time and time and time again to get on good footing with the police. And I'm trying yet again. But to answer the question, because this is starting to go long, no, I don't hate the police. I don't recommend it to anyone else either. Hate is such a horrible emotion. Um, and to hate the police is just, you're really just begging for trouble. You know, I'm hoping for non-interaction at this point. That's really all I'm looking for, is to not have to interact with them. Um, but I'll be honest, if I saw a cop in trouble, I would help him. Good, bad, or indifferent. The police stand for something. Um, it's, you know, it's not the fault of the police on the whole that some of their members are not stellar. Um, it would be great if they'd work on that. But, these are human beings. And some of them have more faults than others. Anyhow, this has gone 9 minutes. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to check the volume. See, I got the mic right up in my face. And we're going to go from there. But do I hate the police? No, I do not hate the police. I have never hated the police. I don't wish bad things on them. And honestly, if I saw a cop in trouble, I would help. That's what you do. And if it turns out he's a bad guy, then, that's on me. Or I should say, that's on him. Anyhow, thank you for your time, David Edwards. I'm starting to use my real name again. I've decided to get rid of David Caines. Thank you for your time. You have a nice day.